December 5th, 2014, the day Street Fighter V was revealed. The fifth installment of the legendary fighting game series known as Street Fighter was set to release on the 16th of February 2016, of course with much anticipation and high expectations. Capcom would later announce that the Street Fighter V beta would begin on the 15th of August with the base roster consisting of Ryu, Ken, Chun-li, Cammy, Rainbow Mika, Vega, Rashid, Nikali, Nash, and Bison, Karen, Birdie, Zangief, Dalsum, Lara, and Fong. And the fans couldn't have been more excited. Days came to an end, and closer August 15th approached. Until finally, it arrived. The Street Fighter V beta was here! Now, did the beta live up to the fans' expectations? No, not at all. The Street Fighter V beta was met with many confused reactions, as fans were shocked to see how little there was to do in the game. The beta was released with only 4 modes to choose from, those being the training mode, an online mode, a CPU survival mode, and a short, lackluster character story mode. Gameplay wise, the game was received well. It visually looked like its predecessor Street Fighter IV, but the graphics were vastly improved with a more realistic art style. But you see, the problem wasn't with the gameplay. The problem lied within the in-game content.
We played it on stream, and one of the first things I realized is, wow, there is a very limited amount of stuff to the game, but I knew that was...
What is disappointing about it, and what it needs to be said, is it's lacking, seriously lacking content, or
scene-based characters, and not really much content on it as far as other modes, okay?
It seemed Capcom wanted Street Fighter V to be focused mainly on the online competitive play as opposed to an offline single-player game like Street Fighter Third Strike. This led to the disappointment and loss of interest among many Street Fighter fans. This situation, I believe, was a direct cause to the game's poor first week sales, only selling 440,000 copies. It would later turned into 1.4 million 6 weeks later, which might sound like a success, but not after the fact that you hear that they were projected to sell at least 2 million in the first 6 weeks. Street Fighter V was well below that margin, thus making their release a total dud. After a disappointing release to say the least, Capcom knew they needed to add a lot of in-game content into Street Fighter V to win back the fans that have lost interest into their newest game title. They would add an additional 6 characters at initial release, those being Third Strike's poster boy Alex, the man with the flattest top Guile, the ninja with the sharpest kunais Ibuki, Mike Bison, Balrog, Illuminati CEO Urian, and everybody's favorite goth sadist, Jury. Though this set of characters was leaked through Steam files of the latest Street Fighter V beta, it was still met with much anticipation, as each character was met with positive reviews, bringing a positive energy to the game. 4 months later, Capcom would add a cinematic story mode DLC called A Shadow Falls, which showed us Capcom was indeed listening and pushing to add for more single player options, which was great, but there was just one issue with this. The story mode fucking sucked. Saying it sucked is me being modest. While playing A Shadow Falls, you could easily tell it was rushed. The dialogue is cheesy, even awkwardly uncomfortable at times. There are so many inconsistencies within the plot. For example, when Mars sacrifices herself to take out Fong, the last thing we see of them is Mars and Fong plummeting into the abyss. And then a couple scenes later, we see Fong safe and sound and Mars is presumably dead. How does Fong survive the drop but Mars doesn't? And then another example is when Chun-li just runs through Ryu's Hadoken. And it's not a small one, it's a fucking massive, it's a mammoth Hadoken, it's like a Kamehameha. All in all, Street Fighter V's first DLC season was a success. It brought back a lot of fan favorite characters back and more content for the offline players. But the offline content was a mediocre attempt. It showed they were willing to try, and as some would say, it's the thought that counts. Unlike Season Pass 1 DLC characters being known before their release, Season Pass 2 DLC characters were shrouded in mystery. No one had the slightest clue of who was it going to be. Capcom is notorious for using silhouettes to show off their characters, sometimes even misleading ones, so that didn't help. Fan favorite Akuma was confirmed to be one of the 6 DLC characters with a questionable new look. The remaining 5 DLC characters were confirmed to be brand new, never been before playable characters. This led to a ton of speculations who these mystery characters could be, some even saying it could be a crossover SNK character.
I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. I have no idea who at least 3 of these characters are, especially that big ass blob, like right there in the middle. I don't.
That's the funny thing. And nobody's got it right still. So this dude lives underground, a master of the martial arts. He's a mutant, and if you have pizza, he might eat it because damn if it isn't Donatello. Donatello of the Ninja Turtles is finally going to be in Street Fighter V.
And on December 20th, 2016, the DLC went public, revealing the 6 DLC characters to be Akuma, of course, Helen, now known as Colleen, Ed, who was Balrog's apprentice in the story mode, Final Fight boss Abigail, Rose's student Manat, and Bushin Ninja Master Zeku. Street Fighter V's second DLC was overall a disappointing one. It wasn't that the characters were terrible, it was more so the fact that Capcom built up so much anticipation for these characters, it was bound to disappoint many. Like, the characters were fun, yeah, but it wasn't really what we were hoping for. At this point, Street Fighter V had 2 waves of DLC characters and was building a pretty solid roster. But with Season 2 DLC characters being so many new faces, Capcom had to bring back a good amount of familiar faces back to remind us all of what past characters made this fighting game series so great. So on the 10th of December, at the Capcom Cup 2017 Finals, one of the greatest character reveals in gaming history would take place.
Sakura, fucking I knew it. I fucking knew it. Come on. Who's that? Yes, yes.
Everyone's gonna stop playing this game.
Who the fuck?
What the fuck is this crazy ass looking dude? What the fuck is the Captain Crazy President? What the fuck? What the fuck? Who? Cody? Bust that fucking wall, Cody! You a man now! Cody!
Give me one more person!
They really bring back Cody? Oh shit!
This is no doubt the most memorable reveal out of all the DLCs Capcom has done for Street Fighter V. Everything about this reveal was completely and utterly special. The lineup of characters was fantastic. They had Sakura, they had Blanca, Sagat, Cody. Not to mention that G and Falk, who were new characters, also looked very, very interesting. And with the 60 frame per second cinematic trailer to go with it, and the fans' reactions, everything, it just still gives me goosebumps to this day just thinking about it. In my opinion, this DLC was the game in its prime. Season 3 was one to remember. After a spectacular Season 3 DLC for Street Fighter V, there was no updates for a prolonged amount of time. Little did fans know that that was all by design. It was said that the producer of Street Fighter V, Yoshinori Ono, wanted to reveal Season 4 in a big way, but was unable to because, as always, the update was leaked. Ono was not very pleased, even making tweets expressing his disappointment. Regardless, Capcom's 4th DLC brought back some more familiar faces. those being Kage, or Evil Ryu, Final Fight characters Poison and Lucia, E Honda, Third Strike's boss Gil, and Sev, who is now in a female's body. Overall, this update was okay. With an Evil Ryu-like character, Poison, E Honda, Sev, people were starting to say it was starting to feel like Street Fighter 4.
And the more I'm reading people's reactions online, it's sort of like a lot of people are echoing the fact that characters isn't what Street Fighter 5 really needed, and this is just more characters at this point. So,
as for the gameplay of these characters, it was fine. A Demon Shoto, it's always a good time, and Lucia, though a low-tier character, was a blast to play with her pressure-heavy style and flames. I mean, like, how could you not like flames? But this update took 8 months to get any news on. So for what we got, it was underwhelming. After the 4th season of Street Fighter V, Yoshinori Ono, the man who helped to build the Street Fighter series since the very beginning, announced his departure from being Street Fighter V's executive producer. Ono would address this situation through a tweet saying, quote, "And now after serving almost 30 years at Capcom, I am leaving the company in the summer. This means that I will resign my position as the brand manager for Capcom's various titles, including Street Fighter." End quote. Ono's farewell came from seemingly out of nowhere and caught the Street Fighter community by surprise. This would also put the future of Street Fighter V in question. Without Ono's direction and previously delayed DLCs, Street Fighter V's original projected 6 DLCs seemed to be cut to only 4. But thankfully that was not the case. New head developers Takayuki Nakayama and Shuhei Matsumoto announced that there would be one more final DLC for Street Fighter V. Rumor had it that Street Fighter 6 was preparing to be announced, but it wasn't being received well by the developers or the testers, so it was decided to add another DLC for Street Fighter V so they can have more time to work on Street Fighter 6. Knowing this was the last update, it was bittersweet considering we might have not even gotten one. And on February 11th, 2021, Street Fighter V's last update went live. The first character was the founder of the Saikyo style, Dan Hibiki. Next came Rose and Oro. And after them was a huge one. Crossover rival schools character Akira. And lastly came Luke, who was revealed to be a glimpse into Street Fighter 6. I want to also mention 11, the prototype to 12, but he doesn't really count due to him just being a glorified random select character. This update felt like a good send-off. With more complex mechanics for each of these new characters, it seemed that Nakayama and Matsumoto had the right idea of what they were doing with Street Fighter. And with them also developing Street Fighter 6, the future does look bright. A definitive update was added later, which added a couple new filters, new outfits, and final character stat changes. But it wasn't much, but it's still nice. Before I conclude, I'd like to dedicate a segment to each and every one of these Street Fighter V characters. Each of these characters played a big part into making this game what it is, and they should be honored for that. And so, without any further ado, a moment for each of these fighters. To conclude this video, I would like to give my thoughts on Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V started off as an unpolished game and its future was questionable. But the game really started to come into its own with each and every update. The game was never given up on, and that was evident by how much the game has come since its initial launch. I feel like the game, it's either you like it or you hate it. There's not really an in-between. Personally, I don't think this game's going to be looked too fondly upon. Street Fighter V will always be dear to me though, because it's actually what got me into doing content on YouTube. I'll admit, it isn't perfect. It made me ponder while I even played this game anymore. I was on the verge of quitting maybe 4 or 5 times. But the game just had a way of pulling you back in. Something about it, even though I thought the mechanics were unfair at times, I always came back to it. Thank you for the memory, Street Fighter V. You have cemented yourself into fighting game history. And whether you be remembered for the good or bad, the highs or the lows, as far as I'm concerned, you were a pretty sweet game. So I'll always cherish the memories you created for me. Thank you, Street Fighter V. Thanks for everything.